Is it possible that a cryptid predicted the Chernobyl disaster? How about the tragic Russian apartment bombings of 1999? Or even the 2011 Tohoku tsunami and earthquake? From his first sighting outside a small town in West Virginia back in 1966, to his current worldwide fame and infamy, I heard he even got a movie deal! One cryptid has captured the imaginations of many for over half a century. I hope you all are ready for some cryptid lore dumps today, because dear viewers, as you may have already guessed from the intro, today on Turn the Page we are uncovering the many mysteries of the ever-elusive Mothman. Ladies, gentlemen, everyone of all ages, are you ready to see the man, the moth, the legend? Here he is, the large-eyed swooper, the night prophet. It's Mothman! Let's get right into things, shall we? As a presumably nocturnal creature, Mothman's sightings are hazy at best, a common theme with cryptids. But what we do know about him is that he is most commonly reported to be a tall and slender man, with wings and glowing red eyes. Think Larry Bird with wings and bike reflectors for eyes. This description is vague, so I will fill the gaps in with what has become the popular consensus for what Mothman looks like. Besides those previous features, he is often depicted as having dark moth-like fluff covering his entire body, and a sort of hunched-over neck that gives him the appearance of having eyes on his torso, or maybe no head at all. It's complicated. Beyond his physical appearance, Mothman is also often attributed the ability to predict disasters. Some of the disasters that Mothman has been said to predict are the collapse of the Silver Bridge in 1967, the Russian apartment bombings in 1999, and in Chernobyl? 1986? Look, I'm gonna level with you. Most of my preliminary research for this episode has been done on Wikipedia, but their information on Mothman was severely lacking, so I dug through the darkest depths of the internet and cracked open some difficult-to-locate cryptozoology research papers to go hunt down some more evidence to suggest the existence of an insect-based prophet. And one of the first sites I found had some, well, let's just say it had some interesting sightings. I am a believer, but some of these are a bit far-fetched, even for me. It is interesting that at some point someone out there decided that the human-moth hybrid thing with glowing eyes wasn't crazy enough and decided to lump Future Sight on top of it like it was some sort of like Pokemon. It seems a bit to me like what we think Mothman looks like is more accurately described as fan art of the original account. And with that many layers of distortion, I would say it is unlikely that that is actually what it looks like. But it's the best description we got, so I'm gonna stick with it for the time being. A couple times already I've mentioned this original sighting, so you might be wondering, what was that like? Has he been his charming, fluffy oracle self since the beginning? Well, not exactly. The first sighting of Mothman dates back to 1966. It was a pleasant November night in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, when two couples reported the first official sighting of Mothman. Roger, Linda, Steve, and Mary were relaxing next to the power plant when they encountered it. They described it as a large 7-foot-tall thing with a 10-foot wingspan and large eyes that glowed red in their car's headlights. According to them, it could fly at 100 miles per hour, but also was a clumsy runner. It followed them in their car for a while, but was apparently scared away by light. It was simply a man with wings, who they said you would visualize as an angel. Wow, this story was of a different time. Like, they even had the couple's addresses in the newspaper story and everything. Newspaper quirks aside, this story has some oddities. First, this description of Mothman is definitely nothing like anything that would become canon for him in the coming years, such as the eyes. They are big and red in this, yes, but only when light is shining on them, a far cry from the supernaturally shining ones that we are used to nowadays. And the head. The head is often depicted as being very moth-like, sort of merged with the thorax, but this report notably says that there was nothing unusual about the head. So that's weird. But what really mostly stands out to me about this report is the comparison to an angel. I mean, I can't really think of any other types of winged humanoids that would have had a place in the popular consciousness back in the 60s. Well, I can imagine one, but we'll get to that. But still, the image is an evocative one, but definitely not one I would think of just by looking at this guy. Before we get into the next sighting, I do want to quickly mention that there is one sighting that I have stumbled upon that takes place before the one I just went over. It was said that a group of gravediggers in Clendenin, West Virginia witnessed a brown humanoid with wings flying overhead. While it doesn't directly contradict the previous claim, and took place 3 days before it as well, I'm still marking the other sighting as the first. This is because this sighting set off my research spidey senses, and sent me down a research hole trying to find the origin of this supposed sighting. And sadly, unlike the other sighting which was well documented in a newspaper, I can find nothing suggesting that the gravedigger sighting ever actually took place. It's my belief that it was invented after the fact to give credibility to the true first sighting, but as I can't find its origin, I can't be sure. If you brave commenters have a single iota where this story came from, then please share with the rest of us. But until I'm proven wrong, we will simply have to move on to our next sighting. The next Mothman sighting, of note, was the Silver Bridge collapse of 1967, December 15th, 1967. It was a normal day for the bridgegoers until, with a snap, it wasn't. During rush hour, the bridge between Gallipolis, Ohio and Point Pleasant, West Virginia tragically collapsed, resulting in at least 46 deaths. And a Mothman sighting! Technically speaking, it was actually a series of Mothman sightings, starting all the way back with the first one. Mothman was apparently seen repeatedly over the months after the first sighting, going all the way up to the hours before the bridge incident, where several sightings were logged in just a day. I do have a distinct vision in my head of Mothman being reported to be present during the collapse of the bridge itself, but I can't really find evidence of that anywhere. And on much the same note, I can't find the original sightings of Mothman on the day of the collapse either. That being said, unlike the case of the sighting by the gravediggers, I am sure that these sightings are relatively genuine. They might even be featured in the most famous piece of Mothman literature out there, the Mothman Prophecies. I unfortunately do not have access to that piece of, I can only assume, highbrow educational content. These were ultimately the sightings to push Mothman into the imaginations of the nation. Many claim that Mothman was the one to cause the tragedy of the bridge collapse, but someone put forth an alternate explanation. Over the coming decades, the story was twisted into one of Mothman just warning people about the coming disaster, turning him into an omen of sorts. This is typically the view of him that is seen today, showing him off in an unusually benevolent light when compared to other cryptids. There is one final set of Mothman incidents I want to examine before we dive into what the implications of these sightings are on the greater Mothman mythos. That sighting being that of the one before the Chernobyl disaster. No, the intro was not hypothetical. In fact, there are apparently sightings of Mothman before a great deal of disasters that have happened over the past half-century since the first sighting. In this section, I will be dealing with what I will refer to as modern Mothman sightings. It was 1986, just days before the Chernobyl power plant melted down, when workers and citizens viewed a dark figure with red eyes flying overhead. This figure was named the Blackbird of Chernobyl. Familiar, isn't it? Sightings like this started getting popular in the early 2000s for a reason I'll get to later, but what is important right now is there is a whole laundry list of disasters that were apparently preceded by Mothman sightings. But in more recent years, Mothman has apparently taken up around the Chicago area. Imagine the truck driver stopped outside O'Hare on a perfectly normal 2019 evening when suddenly a 7-foot person with wings swooped out of nowhere. Later, the driver went on to describe it as pure black and goblinoid in appearance, according to UFO Clearinghouse. Questionable reporting origins aside, the whole story is just so strange to me. Cryptid sightings are permanently stuck in the 20th century in my mind, so hearing about modern sightings just seems so silly, I guess. I know logically that these sightings are no more or less real than those of yesteryear, but imagining this dude hitting a vape and being like, oh, it's Mothman, seems so anachronistic, but maybe that's personal bias shining through. Talking about personal bias, my color commentary might lead the casual observer to believe that I'm too critical, and that I'm not a believer, but that can't be further from the truth. It's because I'm a believer that I need the evidence to be solid, and it is unfortunate that a lot of these sightings for Mothman happen to be secondary sources at best, if not straight up apocryphal. Even his characteristics seem to be added retroactively. An example of this is Mothman's supposed future seeing capabilities I mentioned earlier. As far as I can tell, that was a feature invented by John Keel's The Mothman Prophecies, the novel which was later adapted into a horror film starring John Klein back in 2002, the reason those sightings got more popular. In these works, Keels proposes that Mothman is actually an illusion made by aliens. Yeah, okay. Researchers and debunkers would later go on to attribute the sightings to a shite poke. Yes, that's its real name. A barred owl, or some other unusually large bird. The eyes could be easily explained away with the fact that most things' eyes reflect red when hit with a light. It's called the red eye effect, and it's why everyone's eyes look red in photos taken in the early 2000s. And the rest of the sightings could just be said to be forgeries. But that doesn't sit right with me. Despite the dubious nature of some of the later encounters, I must admit that there is something compelling about how the two couples describe Mothman during his fateful first sighting. It's vague enough, yet consistent, that makes me believe, or want to believe at least, that at least a version of the Mothman is real. Could it be an angel, or an alien, or a mutant living in Appalachia? Who knows? I really don't. But maybe that's the beauty of it. So the real question, or rather, the only real question we could possibly answer, is why Mothman? Why was Mothman engrossed in the imaginations of so many? Why does he have a movie about him? Why does Point Pleasant have a statue of him? Is it just me, or is that just not in the best of taste? I think Jack Daly's essay, Mothman, the Silver Bridge Collapse, and the Folklorization and Commemoration of Actual Events, answers this question best. The answer you may be able to guess based off of the name of the article. Mothman is so popular because he was forced rapidly into becoming folklore. Most modern creepypastas exist as just stories on the internet, but with Mothman, the residents of Point Pleasant had to live with the stories almost constantly until the tragedy. And even after the statue was built, a book was written, all pushing the narrative that Mothman was part of this event. Their grief surrounding this event was inextricably tied with a figure named after a literal Batman villain. I mean, I think it's named after Killer Moth? It is according to Wikipedia anyway. Yeah, Mothman came after the Batman villain. I didn't know that. Did anyone? The Adam West Show was airing at the time as well, which I'm sure had nothing to do with the name. Anyway, I'm sure that the general appeal of a flying human is what drew people to stories about Mothman in the first place, but his resolute connection to real, true events is what gave him the staying power we know today. Final judgment. Mothman is cool. As a character, I'd give him a solid B. He has a solid mythos surrounding him, and while his abilities and habitat are a bit too much of a grab bag for me, I'd still say they all work together to make an extremely marketable little guy. Point Pleasant would surely agree with me on this one, but from a believability perspective, I would give the Mothman that exists today like a D. If I were to take everything I had heard about Mothman and then distill it down into one being, it wouldn't work. It would be an abnormally tall guy with reflective red eyes and massive wings, or a completely distorted dark creature with wings and glowing red eyes. The counts just don't line up quite right. Not only do descriptions of Mothman make his features more extreme as time goes on, but they also seem to give him more abilities as well. This compounded over time to the point where the version we have now is hardly recognizable compared to the original. At this point, Mothman has at least partially left the realm of cryptozoology and entered the domain of myth. That is it for today's dive into Mothman. Please tell us what you thought of the episode down below. Is there anything we missed? Anything you would like to see next? While you're at it, if you like this video and would like to see more from us, feel free to like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to us, like almost as much as Mothman means to me. Anyway, hope you have a good day. Bye.